Hi, welcome to Restore 2023. Today we're in James chapter 3 and 4. So we'll start with chapter 3. So James's primary theme in this book, as we've already seen so far, is living out one's faith. Putting our faith into action and not just being a hearer of the word. James rebukes his readers for their worldliness and challenges them to seek divine wisdom in working out these problems and getting right with God. Teachers were important in the early church, and those that were ambitious sought teacher status for the wrong reasons. With greater responsibility comes greater expectations by God. This is in Luke 12:48 as well, and Hebrews 13:17. They will be judged with greater strictness since they are accountable for more. James emphasizes the importance of good works, but also acknowledges that all Christians stumble, in verse 2. Although true perfection can only be attained in heaven, we should all seek to grow in holiness towards perfection. Then he goes on about taming the tongue. So James establishes the general principle that small things can cause great results. Something as small as the tongue has huge power to destroy. It's in verses 1 to 5. He likens it to the rudder of a ship. Something so small has control over such a large object. He also uses the image of a fire. The boastful tongue plotting harm and the tongue as a hurtful fire are all images found in Psalm 39, 1 to 3, 122 to 4, and Proverbs 16, 27. That the fire is sparked by hell suggests where it leads. The tongue was like the deadliest snake, full of toxic venom. Those who wished to teach others as wise sages needed to show their wisdom by gentleness. This is the antithesis of the advocates of revolution, who were gaining popularity in the tensions stirred by poverty and oppression in the land. The term translated jealousy or envy here is the term for zeal, also appropriated by the zealots, who fancied themselves successors of Phinehas. We've already read about him in Numbers 25:11. Strife or selfish ambition also related to disharmony and had been known to provoke wars. So then we move on to chapter 4. So most Greco-Roman philosophers and many diaspora Jews repeatedly condemned people who were ruled by their passions and described these desires for pleasure as waging war. Many writers like Plato and others attributed the literal wars to bodily desires. James does not mean that all pleasures are wrong, only pleasures that does not have the glory of God as the goal. Jewish teachers and writers often use hyperbole or rhetorical exaggeration for effect. Most of James's readers have presumably not literally killed anyone, but they are exposed to violent teachers who regard murder as a satisfactory means of attaining justice and redistribution of wealth. James counsels prayer instead. Later, he has much harsher words for the oppressors. However, they were guilty of exploiting their hungry workers and violently silencing those who spoke for justice. Then he goes on to talk about prayer in verses 3 of chapter 4. Not all prayers are pleasing to God. Only those prayers that are consistent with his will as revealed in Scripture. So in 1 John 5, 14 to 15, we are asked to pray according to his will. This doesn't mean that we have to know his will in order to pray effectively. Rather, it means that we should ask according to what the Bible teaches us about God's will for his people. Believers should be praying in accordance with what pleases God, as found in the teaching of Scripture. However, as I'm sure we have experienced in our own prayers, we do not always receive all the things we ask from God, even when they seem to accord with his will. Other passages in Scripture show us that praying in God's will requires the need to pray in faith. It's in James 1:6, Matthew 21:22. To pray with patience, Luke 18, 1 to 8. Obedience, Psalm 66:18 and 1 Peter 3:12. And to pray in submission to God's greater wisdom, Luke 22:42 and Romans 8:28. James is accusing them of prayers that seek only to gratify self-centered passions or desires instead of prayers that seek to honour God and advance his kingdom purposes. The chapter ends with taking up the themes of wisdom and God's will, a warning not to presume that you will achieve what you want. So the sin here is arrogant presumption that leaves God out of the picture.